Have you ever paused to wonder what really happens when you stop chasing a woman? What if the silence you create isn't just a pause but a powerful reset, an opportunity for both of you to reflect and grow? Welcome to today's deep dive into the art of letting go and mastering your inner strength. Stick around, because we're unpacking how to navigate these moments with Stoic wisdom, regaining not just confidence, but a sense of dignity. Today, we're exploring a fascinating dynamic: what truly happens when you pull back and stop talking to her. More importantly, how can you harness this situation to find inner peace and emotional strength? Using timeless principles of Stoicism, we'll uncover the typical reactions women might have when the chase ends, and how their feelings and behaviors could shift in unexpected ways. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because what we're about to dive into will change the way you approach relationships and yourself. Let's get started. Section 1. Initial shock and confusion. Have you ever pulled back from someone and noticed the ripple effect it creates? It's almost as if silence speaks louder than words. It stirs curiosity, unsettles emotions, and forces a shift in perspective. But here's the catch. What happens next is not what you might expect. When you suddenly go silent, especially after being consistent in your communication, it's as if you've disrupted an unspoken rhythm. She's used to those morning texts, the late-night calls, or the quick replies to her Instagram stories. Then, without warning, nothing. No messages, no plans, just stillness. Imagine this. Sarah and Mark had been texting back and forth every day for weeks. Sarah didn't think much of it. She enjoyed the attention, but wasn't particularly invested. Mark, however, felt like he was doing all the heavy lifting, initiating every conversation and trying hard to keep things afloat. One day, Mark decided to stop. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. At first, Sarah barely noticed, but as the hours turned into days, she found herself wondering, why hasn't he messaged me? Did I do something wrong? That initial confusion began to spiral into frustration and even a bit of regret. This reaction is natural because, psychologically, people are wired to notice when patterns change. When you stop chasing, you interrupt the dynamic she's accustomed to. But here's the critical part. This isn't about her emotions. It's about your growth. From a Stoic perspective, this is your opportunity to reclaim your energy and focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, and your emotional balance. Stoicism teaches that external events, like her confusion or frustration, are beyond your control. What matters is how you respond. Will you rush to explain yourself, trying to soothe her discomfort? Or will you embrace the power of silence? Because, let's face it, the more we try to control how someone feels, the less control we actually have. True strength comes from standing firm, not out of indifference, but from a deep understanding that her reaction is hers to navigate. And here's where things get even more interesting. Silence doesn't just create space for reflection, it plants a seed of curiosity. It forces both of you to reconsider the dynamic. What happens next might surprise you. In the next section, we'll uncover how this moment of reflection can lead to powerful insights, not just for her, but for you. Stay with me, because this is where the real transformation begins. Section 2. Reflection on the relationship. Have you ever noticed how, when you step back, the silence you create echoes louder than any words you could have spoken? Suddenly, everything shifts, not just for her, but for you as well. This is the moment when reflection begins. When you stop chasing, she's left with questions. She replays your last conversation, analyzes your tone, and scrutinizes her own actions. What changed? Was it something I said? Did I take him for granted? These thoughts can be unsettling for her, but they're also incredibly revealing. However, let me flip the script for a second. What about you? What's going through your mind during this pause? Think about Josh. For months, he had been the one constantly texting Rachel, planning dates, and trying to keep the spark alive. Rachel enjoyed his company but rarely reciprocated the effort. One day, Josh decided to pull back, not out of spite, but because he realized the dynamic wasn't serving him. At first, Rachel barely noticed, but as days passed without a text from Josh, she started to miss his presence. Meanwhile, Josh was reflecting on why he had been chasing her so hard in the first place. He began to ask himself tough but necessary questions. Was I chasing her because I truly liked her? Or was I afraid of being alone? This is where self-reflection becomes your most powerful tool. Stoicism teaches us that our worth isn't determined by someone else's attention, but by our ability to live in alignment with our values. Ask yourself, were you pursuing her from a place of authenticity, or were you seeking her validation to feel valuable? Did you lose sight of your own boundaries or compromise too much just to keep the connection alive? This silence isn't just for her to reflect, it's for you to recalibrate. Use this time to assess the relationship objectively. Did the dynamic feel balanced, or were you giving more than you were receiving? Were you acting in ways that align with your principles, or were you bending over backward to fit into her world? The beauty of Stoicism lies in the clarity it brings. It challenges you to shift your focus from external validation to internal peace. Maybe you realize you were texting her good morning every day, not because you wanted to, but because you felt obligated. Or perhaps you recognize that you were always the one driving the relationship forward, while she seemed content to sit back. These realizations are uncomfortable but essential. They allow you to identify where you've strayed from your true self and how you can realign with your values moving forward. Here's the powerful part. While she's reflecting on the relationship, you're doing the same, but with a purpose. This isn't about waiting for her to come back. It's about deciding if the connection even serves you. In the next section, we'll dive into what happens when she starts testing boundaries, because make no mistake, she will. And how you respond will define the next chapter of this dynamic. Stick around, it's about to get real. Section 3, Testing Boundaries. Here's where the game really begins. You've pulled back, and she's noticed. But now, she's about to test your resolve. Will you fall back into old patterns, or will you stand firm and show the strength of a man who values himself above all else? When you stop chasing, it disrupts the familiar dynamic she's come to expect. Maybe she's used to you always being there, replying instantly, initiating plans, or validating her with compliments. But now, there's silence. And silence has a way of stirring curiosity, even discomfort. To regain a sense of control, she might test your boundaries. It could be subtle, a "Hey, how have you been?" text at midnight, or more overt, a carefully curated Instagram story designed to make you react. Let's take Eric as an example. Eric had always been the one to chase, responding within seconds to messages from Megan and going out of his way to make plans. One day, he decided enough was enough and stopped initiating. A week later, Megan posted a photo of herself with another guy at a party. Eric felt a pang of jealousy but resisted the urge to comment or react. Instead, he stayed silent, knowing that giving in would only pull him back into the cycle. Megan noticed. She sent a casual, "Hey, haven't heard from you lately," as if nothing had happened. But Eric responded calmly, without over-investing. "I've been good, thanks. Hope you're well." Megan was intrigued. The dynamic had shifted. This is where Stoicism becomes your guiding light. Stoicism teaches us that we are responsible for our own emotions and actions, not anyone else's. When she tests your boundaries, she's not looking for a simple answer. She's trying to gauge whether she still has influence over you. Your goal isn't to win or lose in these moments. It's to stay grounded, measured, and composed. A Stoic man understands that reacting out of insecurity only gives away his power. Every test she throws your way is an opportunity to demonstrate your inner strength. Maybe she posts a cryptic status, hoping you'll ask what's wrong. Or maybe she sends you a text, hoping to reel you back into the dynamic where you're chasing and she's in control. Don't take the bait. Your composure sends a message louder than any reply. You're not dependent on her validation for your sense of self-worth. Think of it this way. Imagine a coworker who always tries to push your buttons. If you respond emotionally, they know they've succeeded. But if you stay calm and unshaken, they'll eventually lose interest because their attempts to control your emotions fail. The same principle applies here. When you don't react to her provocations, whether it's a late-night text or a pointed social media post, you're showing that your peace isn't up for negotiation. This shift doesn't just affect her perception of you, it changes the way you see yourself. You're no longer at the mercy of external triggers. And here's the best part. When you stop reacting, you create an entirely new dynamic, one built on respect and clarity, not emotional games. In the next section, we'll explore how this silence often leads to something even more revealing: her search for closure. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Section 4. Seeking closure. Here's the moment we've all faced: the text, the call, the question. Why did you stop talking to me? It's direct, emotional, and designed to pull you back into the dynamic you've stepped away from. But here's the question that really matters. Do you owe her an explanation, or do you owe yourself peace? When you pull back, it's natural for her to feel the void and seek answers. Silence has a way of making people confront their own thoughts and emotions, and it can leave her with a need to make sense of things. She might reach out with questions. Why did you stop talking to me? Or was it something I did? This is what we call seeking closure. But here's the key. Just because she wants closure doesn't mean you're obligated to give it, especially if doing so costs you your inner peace. Let me share a quick story. Daniel had been dating Emma casually for a few months. They had a good time together, but Daniel started feeling like he was the one doing all the work. Emma would cancel plans last minute or reply to texts with half-hearted answers. Frustrated, Daniel decided to stop reaching out. A week later, Emma texted him, "I feel like you're avoiding me. What's going on?" In that moment, Daniel faced a choice. He could dive back into the dynamic, over-explaining himself, or he could let the silence speak for him. Daniel chose the latter. He responded briefly and calmly, "I just need some time to focus on myself right now." That was it. No long explanation, no emotional unraveling, and for the first time, he felt in control of his energy. This is where Stoicism shines. The philosophy teaches us that peace comes from controlling our own reactions, not meeting others' expectations. Closure is often a polite way of saying, "Explain yourself so I can feel better." But ask yourself, if explaining your silence only reopens emotional wounds or pulls you back into a toxic pattern, is it worth it? Sometimes, the most stoic and respectful thing you can do is let your silence be the closure. By choosing not to reopen old wounds, you're prioritizing clarity over chaos. This isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about protecting your emotional energy. As Marcus Aurelius famously said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Seeking closure is her journey, not yours. You're not responsible for how she processes the situation, only for how you protect your peace. Think of it like leaving a job that no longer aligns with your values. Do you need to write a detailed resignation letter explaining every frustration? Or can you simply say, "It's time for me to move on"? The same applies here. By keeping your response calm and minimal, you're showing maturity and respect for yourself and her. Here's the real beauty of this approach. It frees you. You're no longer tied to explaining, justifying, or seeking validation. And in doing so, you reclaim your energy for what truly matters, your growth and peace. But what happens if she doesn't accept the silence? What if her emotions intensify? That's where things get complicated. And in the next section, we'll uncover how to handle those emotional storms with unshakable composure. Don't go anywhere. You'll want to be ready for this. Section 5. Emotional responses. Have you ever felt the pull to react to someone else's emotions, like a tidal wave trying to drag you into its depths? Anger, sadness, confusion. They can hit hard when someone feels the shift you've created by pulling back. But here's the secret. Their emotions are not your responsibility. When you stop chasing, her reaction could go in many directions. She might lash out in anger. "How could you just ignore me like this?" Or she might express sadness. "I thought we had something real." Sometimes she may even feel relief, though that might sting more than any argument. And all of these emotions? They're normal. They're human, but they're also hers to process, not yours to fix. Take Adam's experience. When he decided to stop reaching out to his ex, Sarah, he anticipated some silence on her part. But instead, she sent a flurry of messages. First asking what had happened, then accusing him of being selfish for pulling away. At first, Adam felt the urge to defend himself, to explain his side of the story. But he stopped and asked himself, am I responding to her anger because it's justified, or because I feel guilty for prioritizing myself? Adam chose not to react emotionally. Instead, he calmly replied, I understand you're upset. I think it's best for us to take some space right now. That one composed response shifted the dynamic completely. This is the power of Stoicism. It teaches us that emotions, whether our own or someone else's, are like passing storms. They might be loud, chaotic, even overwhelming in the moment, but they always fade. By staying calm in the face of her emotional reaction, you demonstrate a strength that isn't easily swayed. And let's be honest, that kind of composure is rare and deeply attractive. The key here is control. When you're met with her anger or sadness, ask yourself, what do I gain by reacting impulsively? The answer is often nothing. Reacting emotionally only hands over your power. Instead, focus on responding from a place of calm and self-respect. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Imagine a friend who's always venting their frustrations to you. If you react to their anger with equal emotion, the situation escalates. But if you stay calm and listen without becoming entangled, the tension often dissolves on its own. The same principle applies here. When she's upset, your steady demeanor not only preserves your peace, but often diffuses the intensity of her reaction. The next time you're faced with an emotional outburst, remember this: you don't need to meet fire with fire. Instead, let your calm be the water that cools the flames. And if her reaction is one of relief, don't let that shake your confidence. It simply means your decision to step back was the right one. But here's where things get tricky. What if her emotions lead her to reevaluate the dynamic entirely? What if she starts to see your absence as a sign of your strength and begins to reconsider her role in the relationship? In the next section, we'll explore how this period of self-reflection often leads to her reevaluating your worth and why it's crucial for you to stay grounded when this happens. You won't want to miss it. Section 6. The Stoic Path to Confidence. Here's a question for you. What defines your worth? Is it someone else's opinion of you, or the unshakable belief you hold about yourself? When you stop chasing and shift your focus inward, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking validation and start radiating strength. When you pull back, the dynamic transforms. Suddenly she's left wondering about you. Maybe she starts reevaluating your worth, realizing how steady and composed you've been all along. But here's the truth: her perception doesn't determine your value. It never has, and it never will. Your worth is intrinsic, rooted in who you are, not in how someone reacts to you. Think of it like this. Sam used to revolve his self-esteem around how others viewed him. Every compliment lifted him up, and every critique brought him crashing down. After pulling away from a woman he had been chasing for months, something shifted. She began texting him more frequently, wanting to know why he'd gone silent. At first, Sam felt tempted to dive back in, seeking her approval again. But then, he remembered the lessons he'd been working on. His worth wasn't tied to her attention. Instead, he focused on his own growth, spending time on his career, hitting the gym, and reconnecting with friends. The more grounded he became in himself, the more confident he felt. And that confidence? It started drawing people to him effortlessly, including her. This is the essence of Stoicism. True confidence doesn't come from someone else's validation. It comes from knowing who you are and living by your principles. When you stop relying on external factors to define your self-worth, you become unshaken by opinions, compliments, or criticisms. Instead of asking, "Does she see my value?" you ask, "Am I living in alignment with my values?" And that shift, it's life-changing. Stoicism teaches that our power lies in our ability to govern ourselves. Confidence isn't about being the loudest in the room or the most popular person online. It's about the quiet assurance that you are enough as you are. As Marcus Aurelius said, a man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions. If your ambition is to live authentically and with purpose, then your confidence becomes unshakable, no matter who's watching or not watching. Imagine a tree standing tall in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, rain lashes, but the tree remains rooted. Why? Because its strength comes from within. That's the kind of confidence you build when you embrace Stoicism. You're no longer swayed by the ups and downs of someone's attention or the chaos of life. Instead, you're grounded, focused, and steadfast. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop chasing and start living authentically, you begin to attract the right energy, not just from her, but from everyone around you. People are drawn to those who radiate self-assurance because it's so rare. But what happens if she notices this shift and reaches out again? How do you respond without losing the composure you've worked so hard to build? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next section. Don't miss it. It's where everything comes full circle. The next step in your journey. What if today was the day you stopped seeking outside validation and started living with unshakable confidence? What if silence wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning of your transformation? If that resonates with you, it's time to take action. Your journey doesn't end here. The wisdom we've shared today, rooted in the timeless philosophy of Stoicism, isn't just for this moment. It's a toolkit you can use to navigate every challenge life throws your way. Whether it's relationships, work, or personal growth, the principles of self-mastery and emotional balance will guide you toward a life of strength and clarity. Take James, for example. After struggling with constant anxiety about how others perceived him, he made a decision to reclaim his power. He started small, practicing silence in moments of conflict and reminding himself daily that his worth wasn't tied to anyone else's opinion. Over time, this mindset shift didn't just change his relationships, it changed his life. He became more confident, more composed, and more focused on his goals. And it all started with one decision: to choose inner peace. You have that same power within you. When you embrace the Stoic mindset, you're not just reacting to life's challenges, you're mastering them. You're choosing peace over chaos, strength over insecurity, and growth over stagnation. Every step you take in this direction builds the foundation for a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. And isn't that what we're all striving for? If this message hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below or type, "I choose inner peace." Let's build a community of people committed to living with strength and purpose. Don't forget to like this video. It's a small action that helps us share this message with others who need it. And hit that subscribe button, because every day we're diving into life-changing insights you don't want to miss. Oh, and make sure to click the bell icon so you're the first to know when we share new content. Remember, the journey to self-mastery doesn't happen overnight. It starts with a single step, a moment of silence, a shift in mindset, a commitment to yourself. Embrace it, because in that silence lies your power. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and keep mastering yourself. And here's the best part. This journey is just beginning. We've talked about silence, reflection, and inner peace, but what happens when you take these principles and apply them to every area of your life? That's where the real transformation begins. Subscribe now, because we're just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.